Greetings and salutations. My name is Michael Schwahn, and today we're going to talk about the top 10 games that are coming out probably in 2023 that I'm just not excited for. This is going to be a big year for video gaming, and there's a lot of games coming out that I really am excited for. But there's some that some people are really excited about and some that I'm not. Now, I will say that this list is not in order in terms of like least hyped to most hyped. We're actually going to go in order of release date in terms of soonest to latest, and latest is also a little bit subjective in that case because the last two games on the list I don't actually have a set release date for, but the first date we do. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first game on the list is the Dead Space remake that releases on January 27th. Now, it's not that I don't think that this game will be good. In fact, I think that it will. But the reason that I'm not very excited for it is because I've already played Dead Space. And this game definitely looks like it's being a very faithful recreation of Dead Space, and I think that that's fine. I don't see any real issue with that. My issue more lies in that Dead Space doesn't feel like a game that you can really have a good experience with another time over, and that's a personal preference on that one. Some games you can definitely replay, and I don't feel like Dead Space is one of them. Dead Space, being a horror-focused game, is definitely a game that I feel like once you've played it once, the entire aura around the game changes because the surprises are not as surprising. The mechanics you don't have to figure out. And, you know, it makes me wonder, though, even if Dead Space 1 would have been the same type of reception today versus when it originally came out in, like, what was it, like 2006? Just because the internet was much younger then, and we didn't have people like me making a YouTube video a day, and there was an infinite number of guides. But hell, that was still back during the time when you could buy a physical player's guide to something. And so when I played Dead Space for the first time, I thought it was an incredible time. I screamed like a little girl at 2:30 in the morning. I remember that very, very clearly, and it was because of Dead Space, because the game does some things really well. But I don't believe that I would have that experience again today, and not because I'm not as young as I was, but because I've already played it. So if those experiences are similar, you might get a couple of jumps here and there because it's easy, for me anyway, to be jump scared, but I think the overall presentation is just harder to get right this time around. Next up, we have Wild Hearts releasing on February 17th. Now, Wild Hearts, I didn't know a lot about, but we did do a reaction video to it within the last month or so. And I've just been kind of hearing the ruminations that it's like, oh, it is a different company's take on Monster Hunter. Which is true. That is definitely a good way to look at it, and a good way to think about it, is that it feels like somebody else trying to copy Monster Hunter. And that's not new. We had, what are they, God Eater? We had a few of those, and there was Dauntless, I think, was also a Monster Hunter, I won't say clone, but in the relative genre of it. And Wild Hearts is trying to do the same thing. It's got some interesting mechanics in terms of the way that your character can like build things with these like contraptions and stuff like that, which could lead to a little bit more innovative gameplay than just trying to like lead them into bomb traps the way that you do in Monster Hunter. Not that I don't have anything against Monster Hunter, but when it comes to the actual game, looking at it, something feels weird about it. Like, I feel like there's maybe a sense of like wonder or pizzazz missing. I know there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, Wild Hearts is going to be the nice filler for Monster Hunter until we get whatever is the next actual mainline Monster Hunter game, and I don't feel that way. I feel like Wild Hearts is going to be a disappointing side dish. Just something feels awkward, and I can't even really put my finger on it, whether it's the visuals or just maybe the way that the presentation at this point has been cut. It definitely has the aroma of Monster Hunter, but almost like it's something else entirely that's dressed up to look like Monster Hunter. So it's really hard for me at this point to be excited about Wild Hearts because it just doesn't seem to be quite there. Next, we have Atomic Heart. Now, Atomic Heart is a game that I was excited for when we first saw it, and well, the first couple of times we've seen it. But Atomic Heart is one of those games that I feel has taken a very long time to come out. Now, it might be that the pandemic and the time-devouring essence of the pandemic meant that it actually was only announced in like 2019, and it feels like it's been 10 years because that's the way that pandemic time has worked, at least for me. But I feel like it was shown off so long ago, and we're finally getting it. And while it definitely does not look bad at all, it looks great. I think it's just one of those games that's taken too long to get here, and my hype for it jumped off the train a while ago. I think it'll still be good. I do have a concern about how long it might be, because just given the general idea behind how long it's taken to develop, and I don't feel like it's necessarily had a very healthy development, makes me think that maybe the game has had some issues, which could also lead to the game just not being a very hearty experience. I did see the announcement recently regarding the open world versus the dungeon, so maybe I am horribly wrong on that, and the game is massive, and it's got these huge expansive areas, and it's going to take 50 plus hours to beat, but I just got this like itching feeling that you could probably get through it in like 7 hours, and that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I have no issue with short games, and in fact, as long as they're a good experience, I really, really like short games. But something just the razzle dazzle is left for me when it comes to Atomic Heart. Still gonna play it, will likely still enjoy it, but I don't have any hype for it. Next is Octopath Traveler 2, releasing on February 24th. And, you know, okay, I was one of the original people that was just super psyched about Octopath Traveler, okay? Before everyone else jumped on the bandwagon, I was one of the people that was like, I'm buying that. That looks sick. I love it. I had faith in it. I had more faith in it than the fucking publishers and developers did. Well, at least the publishers, considering that Amazon was on back order for copies of Octopath Traveler, which is great. I'm glad that the game was super successful. That said, the game's really, really long, and I don't feel like it's long in a very healthy way. We recently talked about the Persona games, and those games are all over 100 hours, and I love them. I think they're incredible. I feel like they are paced in such a way that you are just really engaged by them, and that they are just, when you're done, you're like, man, I would have just kept playing if the game wasn't rolling credits right now. I didn't feel that way about Octopath Traveler. I really liked it visually. It had some really good gameplay mechanics in it, but it didn't carry itself in a way that I felt like it was worthy of the amount of time that it asked for me, and another whole game in there, I don't know how I feel about it. The fifth game on our list is Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. Now, real quick, I love the work that Team Ninja has done. Nioh is my favorite Soulsian game, even better than Bloodborne. I love Nioh, and honestly, I really loved the way that Nioh 2 worked, but Nioh 2 burnt me really bad, and not that it was a bad game, it was a game that overstayed its welcome to a horrendous degree. Nioh 1 was already a pretty significant experience, but it was okay, right? It was like, yeah, this feels good. I got in the rhythm. We've gotten through it. But Nioh 2, the amount of times that you fight the same bosses over and over and over again and go to the same places over and over and over again hurt so much. Now, I did really like Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins. Its writing was hilariously bad and comical, and I think it knew that it was a joke, and it made a joke out of itself. But it wasn't as great as Nioh was, and I don't even feel like gameplay-wise it was as good as Nioh 2 was. And so now we have Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, which some people have just been like, look, it's Nioh 3, okay? It's not called that, but it's Nioh 3. And that makes me worried, just because, like, I really love the combat of Nioh and Nioh 2. And some people have said that Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, because it did have an available beta, was that it feels very similar to Nioh, but a little bit more action, a little bit more flowy. And that sounds great. I'm not actually concerned about that. I'm just concerned about the formula that they've been going with is getting tired. Because while you can kind of see it in From Software games, but they've been finding other ways to really revitalize what they're doing. Dark Souls 1 to Dark Souls 2 to Dark Souls 3 to Elden Ring, they all play the same, but they have found ways to evolve themselves within it, and even though they all look the same, they still feel like evolutions of that. And I don't feel like Nioh 2 or Stranger of Paradise was an evolution on Nioh's combat. Not that I think that Stranger of Paradise was trying to be. And I don't know if Wo Long Fallen Dynasty is going to be a definitive evolution of it either. Still gonna play it, still gonna enjoy it, I'm sure, but I just can't really get excited for it, because I feel like Team Ninja hit the prime bell already a while ago, and while they're still hitting it strongly, I've not really seen them do anything to impress me since their actual release of Neo. Oh boy, here's the big one. Legend of Zelda: The Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, I am not excited for this game. And it's not because I don't want to play it. It's not because I don't think I'll like it or think it was good. I played Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild like I believe most of the rest of the gamer world did. That said, I don't want more just Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was huge and massive and really good, and I still stand by that Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is a fantastic game, but is a terrible Zelda game. It doesn't feel like a Legend of Zelda game. It doesn't follow the formula. It doesn't follow the rhythm. I never feel like I was actually getting more out of my time besides seeing more and doing more and checking off boxes. And I'm really worried that I'm going to feel the same way about the Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, because they gave you all of your tools and toys right at the very beginning. There was no development. There was no progress. The largest thing that you got in terms of new mechanics and tools was the blessings of the divine beasts. And really the only one that mattered was Rivali's, where you could fly up in the air. But all of the other ones were just like kind of cool. But there wasn't like, oh, sick, I got the bow now, or the hook shot now, or I get, this like weird sledgehammer thing, or whatever some of the weird ass tools that you got in Twilight Princess were. You didn't unlock new abilities really ever after you got off the initial island in Breath of the Wild. So it was really just trying to see like where new places you could get to, and maybe some puzzles that operated within those tools and toys. And it wore on me. It wore on me really hard. And I didn't even do everything because there's too much to do in Breath of the Wild. That I played through it. I beat the game. I saw the credits. I did a bunch of extra stuff. I did a lot of the shrines. I found a lot of the bonuses. I made it out to like the special little quest areas, like the island out in the sea and stuff like that. But I can't imagine that I would want more of that. Because unless there's something really, really definitively different about Tears of the Kingdom, currently, while we have no marketing for it really whatsoever, we've had a short teaser trailer and just the smallest little tidbit of gameplay, it currently looks like it's just more Breath of the Wild. And I'm sure that's going to be something that a lot of people are very excited about. But I am not. I wanted something new, and more of what we already have is not that. Street Fighter 6 is next. And, I really like fighting games. I like fighting games a lot. But it's also really difficult to find a fighting game that I really want to stick with. The game that I've stuck with the most over the years was actually the original BlazBlue, which was called Calamity Trigger, I want to say. And I do definitely prefer 2D like anime fighters over most other games, although I really like Tekken. I like Tekken a lot. Actually, Soul Calibur is really good too. Really like Soul Calibur. I've just never really jived with Street Fighter. I've tried it many, many times, and it's just not really been my game, and I want it to be my game because it's one of the largest and most successful fighting games out there. I mean, the other contenders really are like Tekken and Mortal Kombat, but I guess Mortal Kombat might be about on that same level as Street Fighter. I'm not sure, actually, but it tries. It tries its damnedest. And, like DNF Duel is really cool. Grand Blue Fantasy kind of went, whee! And we have so many games that are coming out within the fighting game space, and a lot of them are really good, really flashy, but they just don't feel like they have any staying power. Like Guilty Gear Strive and like DNF Duel that I already mentioned, and King of Fighters 15. And the ones that have the staying power, unfortunately, are the ones that I normally don't jive with very hard. And I was really hoping that Street Fighter 6 might change that, because they were talking about how they wanted to evolve the game. Because Street Fighter was always really heavily known as that footsie game of neutral, and maybe that's why I didn't like it, and why I like these big, flashy anime fighters like BlazBlue or even like DNF Duel, because they're cool and wild and you can do cool things. Or even like Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct is also really excellent. Street Fighter, I don't know what it is. Just when I watch the trailers for it, I can't get excited for it. And I think what part of it is because when I watch the trailers for Street Fighter 6 and I'm checking out people playing in the open betas and stuff, I don't see anything in there that makes me go, I want to do that, or I want to do what that character did, or that looks like something that I would feel really good about doing. Because like in Tekken, for example, it is difficult to pull off characters 10-hit combos in Tekken, but if you do, they look cool, they feel good, and you're like, that was awesome, and you're thinking of ways that you can find a way to set up the opportunity to do it again, to get these cool combos to where you feel like you've accomplished something in a really interesting and neat way. And that's the same way that I look at a lot of anime fighters too. We'll go back to my favorite we'll default to, which is BlazBlue, or even Skullgirls is another good example in that space. They have these really neat animations and these cool interactions with their opponent to where you're like, that was bad ass. And it just doesn't feel like I've found anything along those lines in Street Fighter 6, which is unfortunate because it's going to be one of the largest fighting games for a while. And really until we get Tekken 8 probably, unless we get some new announcement that we just haven't gotten yet. So really, it sucks because I really want to be excited about Street Fighter 6, but I just can't. So the last game that actually has a release date on this list is Diablo 4, releasing on 6/6/2023, June 6th. And, you know, the problem that I have is, again, not even that the game looks bad. Part of it is because it's Blizzard, okay? Like, Blizzard, you're struggling so hard to maintain even a iota of public imagery, and you're currently trying to be acquired by Microsoft. And it's like, you know, Diablo used to be one of my favorite games ever. I freaking love Diablo, especially old school Diablo 2. I played a lot of Diablo 3 actually as well. And Blizzard even used to be one of my favorite companies, and they couldn't do wrong. I remember before Overwatch came out, like that was the peak, right? We were at the peak of World of Warcraft. We were doing great shit in there. We had StarCraft 2, we had Diablo 3. We were eating good. The company was treating us good. We had Heroes of the Storm back then. It's still around kinda. And then, like, Overwatch came out, and just every year since then, Blizzard has slowly gotten worse in one way. Whether it's the Blitzchung incident, or whether it's the how many number of issues they've had with, like, interpersonal employee abuse and disputes and stuff like that, their public responses to things, and just their handling of their own IPs and markets. And they have deflated their goodwill on my side entirely. I have no hope that Diablo 4 is going to release in a way that is like respectful of the players, especially after Diablo 4 came out. And I understand that it was a mobile game, so it's going to have things that are about it, you know, but that doesn't give me a lot of confidence for Diablo 4, especially with the way that the rest of their games have been going up to this point. And so I can't be excited for this game because I have a feeling that they're going to mess it up somehow, because that's what they've been doing for the last 6 years. Good luck to Diablo 4 and to everyone else that might be hoping that it doesn't screw them over. First game that we don't have a release date for, and our second to last game of the list, is Starfield, coming from Bethesda. Now, I've heard them say that Starfield's supposed to release, like, in the first half of the year. It was part of the little Xbox showcase that was like, coming in the next 12 months. Well, guess what? So was Hollow Knight Silksong, and we haven't seen even a release window for that outside of that 12-month window. So it's Bethesda, right? Like, you either like Bethesda games or you don't, and I like Bethesda games, okay? Skyrim was awesome. Fallout, I played 3 and 4. I didn't play New Vegas, but I really enjoyed them a lot. The amount of freedom that you have in those games, relatively speaking, they're just these really cool sandboxy environments that have these neat paths and stories and stuff that you can go down. It's cool. They have a good formula. They're also always broken. Just always. They always release really poorly too. Like, they release in such bad states, and they very rarely ever get fixed. And Starfield, given what they've said about it too, of the, like, their target is like 30 FPS, and I'm just like, guys, it's 2023. I understand if you're not pushing 4K like super hard, because 4K is overly burdensome on hardware, but we've been hitting 60 FPS targets since the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1980s, bro. Like, come on. This shouldn't be something that we accept anymore at 30 FPS. Now, that's not the reason that I'm not excited is the 30 FPS thing. It's just because it's Bethesda. Because I refuse to get excited for Bethesda games because they're going to be trash in some way. It's going to be a buggy mess. It's going to crash. It's not going to work. There's going to be things that are just jank-tastic about them. And it'll be fun. It's going to be a good time. But because I have set my expectations in such a way of what Starfield is going to be, I can't be hyped about it because I expect it to be crap. Good crap. It's like a Loft House cookie, right? You know, the ones with the powdery white bottom and the weird like layer of frosting on the top? It's like one of those cookies. They're gross. They're disgusting. But I love them. And that's the way that I'm going to feel about Starfield. Never excited to eat a Loft House cookie, but I'm like, it's going to be some really good, terrible processed shit. The last game on the list is Hades 2. Now, there were so many people that were really excited when Hades 2 got announced at the Game Awards, okay? And I was not one of them at all, because I was disappointed with Hades, and boy howdy is that blasphemy, and I understand why, okay? I really love Supergiant. Is that their name? Crap. I always get them and the people that make the Dark Pictures Anthology, because it's Supermassive and Supergiant Games, and I think the Dark Pictures Anthology is Supermassive Games, and Hades is Supergiant Games. Either way, okay? I loved Bastion. I enjoyed Transistor. Pyre was my favorite game that came out that year. What was it, 2017, I think it was, that Pyre came out? I loved Pyre. That game was so good. And they are so good at crafting these beautiful worlds and intricate stories, and I was ready for the next one, right? I was like, man, they don't miss. They can't miss. And, like, I'll be honest, like, I don't feel like they missed in Hades. Obviously, they didn't. Like, it's a cultural phenomenon that it's outpouring love and support, and they made so much money. And I think that's why the studio that was known for never making a sequel is now making a sequel, because at a certain point as a company you start chasing the money. And while I'm not trying to suggest that Hades 2 will somehow be a cash grab, but I think they went with Hades 2 for money, not because it was necessarily the most like interesting creative choice, okay? And I don't blame them for it, but Hades was not the game that I was hoping for from them at all, because they, up to that point, had delivered these like 5 to 10 hour experiences, depending on how long it took you, in these beautiful worlds with these interesting characters that delivered these powerful, like, emotional stories. And that's what I was hoping to get out of Hades. And it's not that that isn't there, but I hate the way that it's delivered. I like roguelike games, but I also like my roguelikes to not actually be that heavy story focused, because I don't feel like the genre is befitting of telling a story. And I felt like the genre hurt Hades for me a lot, because you'd go in, you'd play a whole bunch, you'd try and get through this run, and then if you got far enough on the run, when you died, that's when you got more story. And there was very, very little story to be gained in any meaningful way during a run. You could get a little tidbit here and there depending on which god you chose to get a blessing or a boon from. If you completed a run, you got some story, but you also had to complete 10 runs to get a story. And it just felt bad, because it's like, you know, I love this world and these characters, and this is really cool, and you've done such a beautiful job. But I feel like for someone like me who really wanted to engage with the story, the best thing to do was just run out there and, like, you had the choice of, like, do you want to try to push for a victory, or do you want to just push far enough that you think you'll trigger the next story event? And that sucked, okay? I really didn't like that, to the point that I didn't finish the game, because I was like, I just want to see what happens next. I don't want to have to spend all this time on another roguelike run to see it. The game was fun. It was pretty. It was fun. It had good mechanics. But their games for me were about the story, and the gameplay was getting in the way of the story for me. I don't feel like it complemented it at all. I do give them credit for creating a reason, like a lore reason for a roguelite to exist, because I do think that that's a little challenging of creating a substantial and acceptable way to have a roguelike mechanics actually function within the story, like an actual lore appropriate reason for that cycle to happen. But at the same time, I didn't like it. And so when they announced Hades 2, I was like, that's cool. I'm not gonna like it. So that concludes our list of the 10 games coming out in 2023 that I am just not excited for. And if you're excited, by all means, I'm happy for you. But there's very specific reasons that I just shared why I'm not excited for these games. And, you know, if you disagree, I understand completely. I 100% do. Every single one of these games, if you have if you are excited for them, I can 100% understand the reason for it. I just can't be. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. If you agree, if you disagree, why you agree or disagree. If you think I'm just objectively wrong, please let me know the reason why. But this has been fun. There's plenty of games that I am excited for coming out in 2023, but these are definitely some of those big ones that I'm just like, I can't share that hype with you. But let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. If you want to keep up with the conversation elsewhere, 2 great places to do so are Discord and Twitter. Speaking of Discord, we have channels dedicated to content creation where you can even discuss this exact video if you would like to. And if you would like to join us live on stream, we do stream on Twitch, and I would love to see you there. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like. If you want to catch future videos, please subscribe to the channel. If you watch one of the other videos on the channel, or if I see you in the live stream, thank you and enjoy.